Hey y'all, it's time for another episode of What's Cheering Me Up Right Now? Yay! And I need you to get yourself ready for a crack episode of What's Cheering Me Up Right Now. I have had a week off basically, and I am really feeling my oats. I didn't realize how depleted my energy was until I got it back. This is my first filming session of the new year, and I'm kicking it off with a banger of a What's Cheering Me Up Right Now. I can't wait to share my joy with you. If this is your first time to my channel, then welcome. I'm glad you're here. My name's Hannah. I love beautiful things, particularly makeup and skincare and fashion. So on this channel, I talk about those things. I occasionally review those things, but I'm more interested in the love of beauty at large and in figuring out how to live well at large. So I try not to encourage overspending on beautiful things. It's a trap that those of us who love beautiful things can often fall into. Preposition. It's a trap into which those of us who love beautiful things can often fall. And when I talk about my favorites, I like to zoom out from products and just talk about what's cheering me up right now in general in my life, because so much brings me joy besides buying makeup. If all of that sounds good to you, I hope you will subscribe. And now let's go ahead and get into the meat of the video. Speaking of things that are cheering me up, I really feel like the haircut is starting to come into its own. Thank you, by the way, those of you, those like hundreds of you who left sweet comments about my hair in the video where I offhandedly mentioned that some people had been really mean about it. You know, haters gonna hate, and I'm totally fine, although I appreciate the moral support as always. But I do feel like, even though I was really living for the like extremely aesthetic and particular point of view that I feel like the hair has been having since it got cut about 3 weeks ago, I feel like it took a couple of weeks for like the texture to come back. I think that many of my hairs got cut way shorter than they've been like in years. And so my hair was sort of in a state of shock, understandably, because it was a lot. We've been putting her through a lot. But on this most recent wash, which is the third wash since the cut, it came back. Like the curl is back. And this is what I was going for. Like this is what I was envisioning when I talked with Jude and like showed her my inspo images. So I'm really excited that it's turning out to actually be exactly what I had envisioned, even though it was fun. The wig phase, the extreme like shaggy mullet wig phase was one that I don't regret going through. Preposition. It was one through which I don't regret going. Okay, that is cheering me up. This is one of the things that's cheering me up. It's legitimately on the list. So I was about to say let's get started, but we actually have gotten started. Although it wasn't the first thing on the list, because the very first thing on the list is that Sadie is doing so much better. So much better. I was actually planning to hold her up in this video, but she's not here. But that's also good. She's like out in the house somewhere living her best life. She's like digging in a plant or something, which is just so good. I mean, everything. She's back to doing everything. If for some reason you're not caught up, my cat was very, very sick, like literally on death's door sick about a month ago. And she was already better, getting better by the time I filmed the check-in video where I talked about it, but many of you have been asking for a full update. And I'm happy to give you the full update, which is that we hope we still need to make an appointment to get her like final blood work done to make sure that everything is all good on the inside. But she is back to her normal self in absolutely every way, like energy, appetite, everything about her is back, and we couldn't be more relieved. Sorry, it got very noisy as soon as I started filming. It did take some time for her to fully recover, and actually she's like way happier than she's been in a long time because Smidge is gone, which brings me to the second thing that's on my list, which is that Smidge is so happy. And again, if for some reason you don't know the history, Smidge is a little black kitten that we adopted some months ago at this point. I think it was the middle of October. because we figured out was probably born around the 1st of September. She was about 6 weeks old when we took her in. We didn't adopt her. I think I might have said that. We were fostering her. She was a stray. And we were hoping that Sadie would eventually come around, but she didn't. And she was really, really stressed out. And then she got sick. So it was just like all crazy. And around the time that she got sick, we found a home for Smidge. My friend Becca adopted her. And the thing that was great about it is that Smidge, and this is, I'm retreading old ground for some of you, but it has to be said because the end of the story is so delightful. So I have to tell the whole story. Smidge so badly wanted to be friends with Sadie. She really, really wanted the love of another cat and to give her love to another cat. And she's a very affectionate kitten, just by nature, to humans as well. But she followed Sadie around with worship in her eyes. She tried so hard to get Sadie to connect with her, and Sadie she's never had a cat friend, and I think that she just doesn't understand that it's possible. She was afraid, basically, of the kitten. It was pathetic because it was clear that Smidge only had love to give and like wanted to play and really wanted to snuggle. And when Sadie was sleeping, she would like creep as close as she could and like try to sleep near her, even though she couldn't sleep with her. It was like really actually sad. What we wanted most of all was for Smidge to go to a home where there was another cat. And Becca has a cat, Ghost, who was lonely because he used to have a cat friend and he no longer has one. So we were all keeping our fingers crossed and hoping that they would bond and that they would like play. And y'all, almost every day I get pictures and videos from Becca, and these two cats are in love. They are so happy. They're grooming each other, playing together, sleeping, snuggling together, literally licking. They will like hold each other with their arms and like lick each other's faces at the same time. Like, I'm gonna try to put some videos and pictures in if Becca says that it's okay. It's like all Ghost wanted for Christmas was Smidge, and Smidge is what he got. It is making me so incredibly happy because I, of course, love Smidge. Like, I care for this little sweet bean and I wanted her to be happy. And for a while there, it was hard to figure out what was going to be the best for everyone. Like the best for this household, the best for Sadie, the best for Smidge. We wanted to care for her, and we fell in love with her, and she loved us, but like we couldn't give her what would be best for her. It was nerve-wracking to try to figure out what the right decision was and to try to make all the logistics work. And so to be on the other side of that and to have made the transition and to have had Becca and her husband adopt Smidge, and then to see how happy she is in her new home and how happy Ghost is and how happy they are. They like love her. And we got to go visit too, and like visit their house and see Smidge in her new house and see how happy she is and meet Ghost. And oh my gosh, it's bringing me joy on an almost hourly basis because I watch these videos like several times a day. So the last time I checked in about Smidge, it was like mission accomplished. But now with like a month or so under our belt of Smidge and Ghost living together, it's like mission accomplished plus multiple thousands of times to the nth degree, like the best thing that could possibly have happened. I love knowing that there are so many of you following Smidge's future career with great interest, and I hope that we can look forward to some Smidge content on Becca's YouTube channel in the new year. She's promised to try to find a way to get Smidge like in the background of her videos the way that she used to be in the background of mine, although she and Ghost are inseparable, so it might be that she's just off snuggling and playing with Ghost all day, and you know, there's nothing anyone can do about that. But that's what we want for Smidge. We want her to live her best life. Next on the list, I wanted to talk a little bit about the transition to the new year with my YouTube channel, which has been cheering me up for kind of a funny reason. And it's this: because I started my channel with a year-long project that defined 2018 on my channel, and then I transitioned from 2018 to 2019 to a new year-long project in 2019, and I did the same thing in 2020. That was a really good idea for me for the first couple of years. I loved, especially the first 2 years, but even the first 3, the 2 budget years that followed the no buy year, all of those were fantastic. And continuing to do monthly check-ins about those things, all of that stuff was a fantastic way for me to find my footing through those years, not just on YouTube as a person filming videos, but also as someone someone trying to renegotiate her relationship with beautiful things and with shopping in the wake of having an overspending problem, and then in the wake of the no buy year. All of that, it was fantastic. So I'm not in any way saying that I regret doing that, but there's a certain kind of pressure that comes with that. Structuring those projects, being public about something that's very difficult, stuff that's interior, things that people don't usually talk about on YouTube, like money, and also setting myself up to commit to a year-long project every year. There's pressure that goes along with that too, not just the pressure to report back to you, but the pressure to execute the project. And it didn't really go as planned in 2020, not just because of the pandemic, although that was largely what happened to the year of less stuff, but also because as my channel grew, I realized that I wanted to stretch my wings and have more freedom to just make the content that I feel passionate about in any given moment. And having committed to year-long projects, even though it worked really well for the first 3 years, in 2020, I started to see that it was kind of keeping other stuff back, holding other stuff in that I wanted to let out. So when I relieved myself of that pressure, all of this content came flooding out of me. And I feel like there's been a lot, in a way, the channel's been lively in a different way since then. When I went from 2020 to 2021, I talked about it being a year of filming what I want. Was that 2021? I can't believe I can't even remember. I think it's a combination of getting old and the pandemic. My brain has turned into a Swiss cheese version of its former self. I used to remember everything. And now I feel like I remember 10% of what happens and of what I myself have said. So I think that it was the beginning of 2021 where I was it's going to be the year of filming what I want. That went swimmingly for me. I felt like I had more of an expansive energy in the work than I did when I was always worried about checking all the boxes and reporting back about everything. And it was healthy for the channel. A lot of you have joined us since I made that transition, and you don't even know what I'm talking about when I talk about my year-long projects. I think that deciding to put less pressure on myself to be measuring things in certain ways has freed me to make content that is more watchable for more people. And the channel's really been chugging along since I did that. So that was all last year, and that was great. But I've really been appreciating it around the switch to the new year, because the end of the year, the new year, and the beginning of the following year, in every past year on my YouTube channel, that has been a very charged time during which I've had to report back about everything I did the year before, wrap up, tie up a bunch of loose ends, and then launch a new thing and channel changes and new rules and changing things I thought I was doing before, and all of this reportage and structure. And this year, I'm just making videos. It's I was making videos all the way up until the end of the year, and now I'm making videos in 2022. And it's I was what do I feel like filming? I haven't filmed a What's Cheering Me Up right now in a long time. I'm going to film that. And this is likely to be the first video of 2022, but it's not because it's a new year, new me, new plan, new project. It's just because it's what I felt like filming. I feel really, really happy about that. I guess what I'm trying to say is that one of the things that's cheering me up is the state of this YouTube channel. Obviously, it's great that the channel's healthy, and I'm so happy that people are subscribing and people are watching. I'm so grateful to you guys for wanting to spend time with me. It's mind-boggling. I am so grateful. It's surreal that I'm getting to do this thing that I've turned out to love doing so much, and that I feel so connected with so many of you. And oh my gosh, getting your comments around the no buy year videos that I did at the end of last year. I love hearing from people who are doing no buys. It's so exciting because it transformed my life so much. I'm so, so grateful to my past self for making that decision and doing it. So I love it for all of you who are doing it. But I also love hearing from people who aren't doing no buys and don't feel like they have necessarily an out of control overspending problem, but they appreciate, even when I'm just reviewing makeup, the fact that I'm reviewing it from a place, a grounded place, from a place of knowing that overspending is a problem in the beauty community and not wanting to fuel that fire. And I think that for a while I felt like I was sort of walking a fine line trying to figure out if there even is a middle ground, if there even is a way to publicly be passionate about beauty, genuinely love reviewing things, testing it and reviewing it. Like I genuinely love doing that. But for a while I was asking myself always the question. I was doing it, but I was always asking myself, am I doing this in a way that is still grounded in the knowledge that overspending is a problem and isn't fueling that, but that is tempered by my history and what I know? I was asking myself, really, I've been asking myself for years, is it possible to have both and do both? And I feel like the feedback that I've been getting lately from a lot of you is that not only is it possible, but that is what my channel has become. And I feel that in my own relationship to it, like the confidence and joy with which I embark on the project of doing like a hour-long review of Lisa Eldridge Foundation or something, like I just feel like a joyful energy and focus about it that I feel like has been growing over the years as I found my footing. But I've also been hearing from you guys that that's how it's being received. I'm so happy about that. I'm happy that I feel free to just do my work, and I feel free of my own constraints, like the constraints that I used to put on myself and the anxiety that I used to apply, the pressure I used to apply to the project of my YouTube channel. I feel like I've kind of come out the other side of that, and I'm gonna go. Nothing has made me realize that like the transition to the new year, comparing this new year on my channel to all of the new years on my channel that I've had before. And so it's just been cheering me up. I've been thinking about it every day. Oh, this one, y'all. And this might be partly related to the fact that I had some time off. I just filmed a Get Ready With Me on Patreon, and I put on this makeup and I talked about my holiday season, which didn't go as planned. You know, it's been a tough one. It's been a really surreal, weird Christmas once again. But as a result of all of my plans getting destroyed, I ended up having like a week of just relaxing in all of these ways, just like really resetting my life. I started taking much better care of my skin. I had the idea that I wanted to do that leading up to that week. And then over the past like week or 10 days, I've been taking much better care of my skin. And it's funny because I've talked recently about how simplified my skincare routine has become. And it is still that way. It's not, when I say I'm taking better care of my skin, I don't mean I'm like buying expensive masks or something and like, you know, using really fancy serums and oils and like piling products into my routine. Maybe a thing like Becca gave me a couple of sheet masks. So that's been great, right? I have had a couple of things that I've used that have been additional, but mostly it's just that I've been using the products that I have more intentionally and taking more time, because I had gotten kind of snowed under in my mind, I think, because everything was really intense in the last couple of weeks of the year. And one result of that was that I was just doing the bare minimum with skincare, even for my simplified routine. Most nights I would put on my Curology serum, but I was often forgetting it. Most nights I would follow it with some kind of oil or moisturizer, but I wasn't like layering the moisturizer. I wasn't taking time. I have some watery essences that I would sometimes remember to use, but I wasn't taking time to like pack them into the skin multiple times in a row to really help my dry skin. So my skin was just feeling dry all the time, feeling like it had that layer on the top of it that hadn't been exfoliated. My lips were really dry. I was feeling like the 11s between my eyes and the wrinkles in my forehead and the crow's feet around my eyes were just becoming more and more prominent because of like dehydration. And that was it had been months and I just hadn't done anything about it. Buying an additional product can be part of taking better care of your skin, but it doesn't have to be. I guess what I'm trying to say is that in my case, what it's really been is like a mental shift. Making time to mask. I've been using my eye cream instead of skipping it. I've been packing my watery essences into my skin like 7 times in a row instead of just doing one swipe and then, you know, putting on like my night cream and just going straight to bed. And so I feel like my skin is completely revived. I feel so much better in my skin. You can take better care of your skin just by using what you have more actively. At least for me, that was true. Like I had stuff there that I wasn't using. So if you feel like the thing that's cheering me up right now, which is that I've been taking better care of my skin and I feel like it's showing, if you feel like you want that to cheer you up, maybe the place you start is with what you already have. Actually looking at what you have. It's been cheering me up that my skin's been looking and feeling better, but it's also really been cheering me up that I've managed to make the time. It's like when you start taking your vitamins again after you've been self-sabotaging by just omitting to take your vitamins for weeks or months on end. I speak from experience. Then when I'm like, Hannah, take your vitamins. What are you doing? It just takes a minute. And then I start doing it and I get back in the habit. It's empowering because I have a sense of agency. Like I can make change in my life. I can take better care of myself than I have been taking. I've proven it to myself by starting to do it. The last thing on my list of like things in my life that have been cheering me up before I get into the list of the things I've been reading and watching and listening to, like the media that's been cheering me up. The last thing that's been cheering me up is my sort of like simplified and decluttered makeup collection. I did a really extensive declutter that I filmed vlog style. I'm sure that many of you have seen it in like the middle of December. So my vanity is just more spacious. It's clearer. There's less stuff on it, fewer things to weed through. And I have been enjoying my products much more since I did that. So it's like a little thing that's, again, and maybe that's related to my expanded ability to take care of my skin, because I feel like I can see what I have better. And I feel like when I sit down at my vanity, there's sort of like a sense of calm and spaciousness, and I'm able to like spend time there. Whereas for months before then, I was just sitting there and being like, bleh! And then like getting in, getting out as soon as possible, because it felt like this chaotic, overstuffed workspace, and I didn't feel like it was soothing me to be sitting there. But lately I feel, since I did that declutter, I feel like it is soothing to me when I sit at my vanity and I survey the domain. There's a lot of empty space on which to place things that I'm using, and then I can put them back where they go. And it's been much easier to keep it clear because it's not overstuffed with stuff. So I wanted to mention that, just follow up on that declutter. It really worked out for me. It was a really good one. Okay, let's talk about media that's been cheering me up. First, I have to briefly mention the Kerry Greenwood books. I talked about them in the video about the things that I purchased with my budget because I had just purchased a couple of books. I am still enjoying them so much, and they're definitely cheering me up. So I know I'm repeating myself a little bit by mentioning them, but I couldn't not, in case anyone didn't see that, because I also was at the very end of that video. So if you didn't watch that video and you're watching this one, I am enjoying reading Kerry Greenwood's Earthly Delights series, the Karina Chapman mysteries. She's also more famous for having written the Franny Fisher series. The Karina Chapman series, it has its own appeal because it's not historical. I mean, I think now it's maybe a little bit historical. I think it's set in like the early 2000s or something, but she wrote it and it's set in the time during which she wrote it, which was pretty recent, whereas Franny Fisher, I think they're like set in the 1920s or something, right? They have all the delightful qualities of Kerry Greenwood's books, of the Franny Fisher books, but the main character is a very different kind of sassy, empowered, self-realized woman, and in a way easier to identify with because she lives in the 2000s and, you know, is dealing in some ways with the world in which we currently live. I mean, a lot has changed since the early 2000s, but I'm particularly appreciating that part, even as a lover of historical fiction, historical murder mysteries, and, you know, lady detectives and stuff. Even as that, I particularly appreciate this quality in the Karina Chapman books by Kerry Greenwood. It's cheering me up to have a good series going. I've read them before because I listened to them on Audible, but I've never read the paper books before, and that's what I'm doing now. Let's talk about music. I have a new playlist, which is called High Fashion. I will make it public before I post this video, and I'll link it down below, but I'm warning you, it's like adult content. This is, I mean, I think almost all the playlists I've ever made public on Spotify have had some adult content, but this one it has a very particular point of view. And here's how it came about. I was watching, as I always do, some Brian Jordan Alvarez caricature shorts, like TikTok videos on YouTube. I talked at length about Brian Jordan Alvarez in the last What's Cheering Me Up Right Now. And he's actually going to make an appearance later in this video because I have been consuming more BJA content. This is relevant to the fact that I was watching he has a new character called Sugar Baby. Is that what she's called? Yeah, Sugar Baby. Sugar Baby has just shown up a couple of times on Brian Jordan Alvarez's YouTube channel, and she just vogues at the camera. She's like posting from her sugar daddy's apartment or on vacation with her sugar daddy. So I think there was like one from Alaska where she was like on vacation with her sugar daddy. I can't explain it. I'm just going to link the Sugar BB Brian Jordan Alvarez videos. I think there are only 2 of them or maybe 3. I'm just going to link them. You have to go watch them. Anyway, I love this character. And the video, all 2 or 3 of them, I can't remember, used this Roddy Ricch song called High Fashion. And it goes, I can't play it because of copyright, but maybe if you don't know the song, maybe if like me, you don't know who Roddy Ricch, I mean, I know who he is now, but I didn't know who Roddy Ricch was. I didn't know the name of the song, but I knew the song. It was catchy in my mind and I loved it. It was watching this Brian Jordan Alvarez character that made me realize that I wanted to know what the song was so that I could listen to it. So if that's you, let me try to communicate to you which song it is. Okay, it goes like this. If we hop in the Benz, is that okay? Is it okay if I call you my Prada bae? I ain't no player, but I got a lot of baes. But I'm going to tell you I like you a lot, bae. I want to start from the top and the bottom, bae. It's that song, okay? That's the part that I was like, wait, I love this song. What is this? So I looked it up, probably by Googling, I'm going to tell you I like you a lot, bae. It came up as a song by this artist, Roddy Ricch. I started listening. It's called High Fashion. I started listening to it. And then I was like, I want more like this. Spotify started recommending other songs that have a similar kind of like chill beat and sort of similar themes, similar style of music. Through the sort of suggestions of Spotify, I slowly built a playlist of those songs. Some of you might love it and some of you might not. I'm just telling you, this is what's been cheering me up, okay? This playlist has been my theme music, except that I took like a little break from it for 3 days to listen to Christmas music. But before that and after that, this is the music that I put on when I really need to like elevate my mood. And I've said this in every What's Cheering Me Up Right Now where I talk about music, but I use it like a pill. I'll be sitting here like, it's night and I'm so tired and I need to go take a shower, but I just can't get it together. And I'll put on Feel Good. And it's like, dee-nee-nee-nee. It's like I've gotten an electric, like clear, it just affects me so chemically, so strongly. And for some reason, it's these songs, the vibe of them that has been hitting home lately and helping me get through my life. Okay. So I've created this marvelous, in my IMHO, marvelous playlist, High Fashion. From me to you, you're welcome. Okay, now let's knock out the stuff I've watched. Netflix knows me. I was clicking around. I didn't know anything about this show, Arcane, and I don't know anything about League of Legends, the video game that it's based on. But I went to Netflix one day, a long time ago. This is like overdue. It's forever ago that I watched the show because it was right when it was released. I was on Netflix one day. I was getting in the bathtub. I was like, I need something to watch. And Netflix was like, this is what you want. And I had never heard of it, but just based on the imagery and the fact that Netflix was like, we know you, B, and we know what you want. You definitely want this. Just trust us. So I clicked on it. I started watching it. This was before I even knew that it was based on League of Legends. But it's an animated fantasy show where people have supernatural powers. Okay. That's all that I want. It's much grittier than other shows of its kind, sort of, that I've recommended or that I've talked about in the past. So things that I've loved, like The Last Airbender, Legend of Korra, She-Ra and the Princess of Power, Steven Universe. I mean, like those kinds of things are all kind of fit together, and that it's probably based on that Netflix, and the Dragon Prince is another one, based on that Netflix was recommending this to me. But Arcane stands apart in that it's much grittier and more adult than any of those, than even the grittiest of those. Like, I feel like even Legend of Korra at its grittiest and its most evocative of World War II, you know, like its most actual darkness, even it is like lighter than Arcane at its lightest, kind of, you know what I mean? So it's definitely its own group. But I was so sucked into it and still am. I felt much more drawn in by the story and it sort of like bled more into the fabric of my daily life, the emotional tenor of it, than other things that I've watched since then. It's like I feel more like I'm living a little bit with Arcane in my blood than I am living with other things in my blood, even things that I've watched since it. That's how intensely I felt about it while I was watching it. I really got sucked in. I really loved it. So I watched the first couple of episodes, and then they weren't all available at the time, so I had to wait before I got to finish it. And then I looked it up, and it's like based on this video game, League of Legends, and I was like, is this for me? Like, is this just weird and I shouldn't like it? But I just kept watching it because I loved it so much. I'm a sucker for an origin story. Again, I think I said this about the time I watched the Mortal Kombat movie, even though I didn't know anything about Mortal Kombat. I don't care if I know the character. If I can sniff out that it's an origin story, if my spidey senses tell me that it's an origin story, I get all tingly and excited and I'm just glued to the screen. And Arcane is, in a way, a show of origin stories about the League of Legends characters. So that's probably partly why I like it. But I just also found it extremely compelling. The animation is a little bit different than other things that we've seen. The way that it incorporates music is really good. The intensity, the fact that the two main characters are sisters, and so it's not some sort of like star-crossed lovers, heterosexual like love story. It's like sisters who are negotiating their lives together when they're young together, and then their lives together as they grow up and they kind of grow apart. Love that about it. I feel like it was also quite well received. I mean, everything that I read said that it was like smashing ceilings for ratings and viewership, and lots of people were watching it, lots of people were loving it, and I think it's been renewed for a second season. So I'm really excited to see the next season, although I'm sure that it'll be a long wait. More recently, I have really been enjoying RuPaul's Drag Race Italia. It's been really fun for me to watch because I lived in Italy for a while. I spent an entire year there studying abroad, and then I went back after I'd graduated from college, and I spent some time living in a more rural part of Tuscany, working at a ceramic studio. So I have known a lot of wonderful Italians. I'm definitely not fluent in Italian, but I studied it for both semesters of my year abroad there during my junior year of college. I think I know more Italian than I remember that I know. And so when I start talking to someone who speaks Italian, sometimes the words will come unbidden. But if I sit down and try to remember Italian words, then I like can't remember them, you know, like that's kind of like the space it occupies in my mind. So it was really fun for me to remember language that I sort of know but had forgotten because it's in Italian, but there are English subtitles, right? So I was like hearing and sort of comprehending some of what people were saying, but also comprehending it because I was reading it. That was really fun. But I feel like the equivalent of that also happened for me culturally. I was also remembering things about the way that many Italians think about art and artists and talk about art and artists. Drag queens are artists, and drag is an art form, and drag queens everywhere and on RuPaul's Drag Race everywhere do talk about that. But the way that the Italian queens talked about it is particularly Italian, and that's something with which I have experienced that I love. And those experiences also influenced the way that I think and talk about art. My experience too living in Italy, and I don't want to make sweeping generalizations because I think that there is a broad spectrum of the way that people behave, the way that people, for example, express their emotions. There's a broad spectrum of that in every culture. So I'm not saying that this is like true of all Italians, not to stereotype, but my experience living in Italy was that compared to what I'm used to in American families and in American, for example, schools, in day-to-day interactions with shopkeepers and like people you might meet, people on the street, it felt in Italy like the doors were open, the doors and windows were open. in people's emotional lives. There were curtains instead of doors, just in people's exchanges in general, right? Just more comfort with letting what's in out. Another thing I really loved about living in Italy, and another thing that I learned, the Italian queens on RuPaul's Drag Race are so open, so emotive, and the strength of emotion is seen as a kind of power rather than something that needs to be contained or is potentially shameful. So it made the season extremely dynamic and delightful to watch for that reason, just on the surface level. But on a deeper level, again, it also reminded me of like what I have learned from the Italians that I've known and loved. And it like reminded me of who I want to be. You know what I mean? It reminded me that I would rather have curtains than doors, and that in my culture, often there's a pressure for the other thing. Like there's like a cultural pressure to close those doors and windows. And I remembered that that's a thing. And I remembered that I feel like there's strength in vulnerability, and that's something to which I aspire. And so there were these like fundamental levels on which I enjoyed watching the show that didn't necessarily have to do with the way that the show unfolded, even though it was a really good season and really fun to watch. So that has been cheering me up. More Brian Jordan Alvarez, as I promised. I did what all of you told me to do, and I went and watched The Gay and Wondrous Life of Caleb Gallo, and it was so good. So for those of you uninitiated, Brian Jordan Alvarez, the comedian I talked about in my last What's Cheering Me Up Right Now, he does these shorts, but he also has produced like a full-length web series. I think it's like 6 episodes. It's like a little gem of a show. I think there are only 6 episodes and then that's it. Like he produced it himself, so I don't think it ever got picked up anywhere. You know, no more episodes ever got made, but they're perfect. It's perfect in and of itself. It's almost like watching a little film in 6 episodes. And if you haven't seen it, I can't recommend it enough. It's really, really entertaining. Well done. Also in its way does what I was talking about with Drag Race Italia. Like the characters in it have more openness. So when you watch it, you kind of get sucked into this sort of alternate dimension in which the boundaries with which we live aren't as stable as they feel, aren't as constraining as they feel, which is what great art does, especially I think great television and film that's in the end, that's like designed to be entertainment in this way. And then most recently, y'all, I watched Encanto, which is the new Disney movie. Can't even talk about it. I might love it as much as Moana. It's too fresh. I can't even talk about it. It was just 2 days ago that I watched it. If you have access to it and you haven't watched it yet, I don't know if you're anything like me, you've got to have the box of tissues handy. I have so much to say, but I actually feel like I can't do it justice right now. I've been just like sitting here stumbling through a couple of things, trying to get it out, trying to let you know why I think it's great. But I feel like I need to just say I loved watching it. It really cheered me up. It made me very emotional. I think a lot of people will see themselves in a lot of the characters in a way that is very unusual, especially for a Disney movie. And then stylistically, it's fabulous. It's got this like vastness about it, even though it all takes place inside one family's home. It's like Moana meets 100 Years of Solitude. And can you actually imagine anything better? Because I can't. And that movie just got made and I watched it and I loved it. Okay, that's it. I've been filming for over an hour. I have got to go. I hope you enjoyed this, what is likely turned out to be a beefy video, a doozy of a video. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you for being here, for watching my channel, for being subscribed if you're subscribed. Which reminds me, I recently looked at the analytics. I was doing like an end of year survey of the back end of the analytics. YouTube on the back end tells me that like 50% of people, or maybe even more, it was some scandalous number of people watching my videos without being subscribed. Is that you? Are you out there? Are you one of the like 55% of viewers who's over here just watching my channel without subscribing to it? What are you doing? It's free. It's no skin off your nose. I'm just going to say it's the least you can do. Anyway, back to what I was saying, which is to those of you who are subscribed, I am so grateful to you for being here and being subscribed. I feel like the new year, it's often a time of reflection, right? And as I have reflected on what's cheering me up and on, the year that we just finished and the prospects for the new year, I overwhelmingly have a sense of gratitude to all of you for being here and being a part of my life. So that is the last thing I'm going to say. Thank you for essentially cheering me up with your very presence. And I very much hope that you are taking extra good care of yourself so that you can be the most effective version of yourself as you do your work in the world.